My husband was raised a Baptist, did not necessarily buy into the church as far as giving money to them, didn't feel like it was being used properly. I was raised an Adventist, was raised to pay tithe, to pay offering. That was the first thing that came out of your paycheck every month or every 2 weeks, however you got paid. So I was tithing on my money because I was helping my husband go through college. And then we adopted our daughter from India and decided that I would stay home. And at that point in time, I was not making any money. He was. But I still felt impressed to pay tithe. But knowing his attitude towards money and the church, I started out very cautiously. And so I started out paying 5%. Wait 3 or 4 months and I got up to 6%. And then I got up to 7%. When I got up to 8%, God impressed me to talk to Kenny about that because I felt like I was being a little deceitful. And so I talked to him about it thinking that I would get a negative response. And to my surprise, Kenny looked at me and said, well, what is full tithe? And I said 10%. And he said, go ahead and start paying that. And God continued to bless. Even though he was not a member of the church at that time, God continued to bless. And then roll forward to 2004 when our daughter's going to college. And once again, we just didn't know how we were going to pay for it. But God blessed, and we paid every month. We paid her tuition. And when we got to the end of that first semester, we were very grateful. And I went to do taxes. And as I was doing our taxes and adding everything up and doing the final totals, something wasn't right. I didn't know what was going on. I thought I added wrong. So I went back, re-added. So that still didn't come out. So I did it on the second time. Started with new forms, plugged everything in. Still something wasn't right. Did it a third time. Ended up doing it a fourth time. And finally decided that it was right. There was nothing that I had done wrong. But the interesting thing is, we'd always heard how when God blessed, he always increased. But this time the issue was that my husband had made $10,000 less. And that's not just the only interesting thing. It was the exact amount to the penny that we had spent on Saroja's tuition for that semester. And so for about 3 months, I pondered that in my heart. And then decided to talk to my husband about it. He was a new Adventist at that time, been in the church about 4 years, and I didn't know how he was going to feel about making $10,000 less. We were jogging one day, and I talked to him about it. And he looked at me and he said, Barbara, that's not how I would have answered that prayer. He said, I would have given us $10,000 more. He said, but God gave us $10,000 less? I said, yeah, isn't that a miracle? Because we still paid our bills. We still did everything we needed to do, yet with less money. And that just, to me, and I think more importantly to my husband, that was a miracle. That was a miracle that he needed. He needed to know that he could trust God in all things if we were faithful in our tithing. What spawned from that was our offering. We were talking in Sabbath school one day, and we were talking about, would we pay our tithe and offering if we didn't get a tax return, tax rebate on it? And going home from church that day, we discussed it, and he said, you know, Barbara, God's really impressing me that maybe we shouldn't count our offering in a tithe envelope, that we should just give it freely and not keep track of it. And we started doing that. And actually, we gave more than we normally gave. And God continued to bless. And even to this day, God continues to bless. In little ways and in big ways, there's always enough. And sometimes there's just a little extra when you need it. And so I really believe that it's very important that we take God at His word. He may surprise us sometimes. He may do something totally different than what we expect. But if we trust, He'll bless.